There's an awful lot of evidence for cannabis efficacy, particularly for pain, particularly for anxiety, particularly for epilepsy, and some other neurological conditions. It's not an overstatement to say that the lives of many of these people have been changed for the better by a prescription of cannabis, which is safe and should be prescribed more often.
Patients tell us it doesn't matter really what your primary diagnosis is. Medical cannabis can aid. We've shown that quality of life improves dramatically.
Have you ever wondered what cannabis does to your body? You may know that it can make you high or hungry, but look at this.
How you feeling? It's been a bit of a rough week. And the best way to take it is put it under your tongue so quickly. Isn't that amazing? It works most of the time.
Did you guys eat lunch?
What you're seeing isn't magic. You're witnessing the biology of our body. But what just happened? And how's that even possible? The answer lies in a vast network of chemical signals and cellular receptors that are densely packed throughout our brains and bodies. The endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short. Think of your ECS like your body's meta system or an orchestra conductor, not just keeping rhythm, but also adapting in real time to every internal or external observation. In this episode of Psychoactive Minds, we will explore the evolution of the ECS in humans, how it regulates states like mood, hunger, and even pain. Joining us in this episode will be medical cannabis experts, neurologist Professor Mike Barnes and GP Dr. Dave Gunn. My name is Niels, and I've been a medical cannabis user for years. I've always been curious to understand how cannabis can be so effective in helping me and many others to cope with such a wide range of conditions that don't seem to have anything in common. My research led me to understand that whenever I respond to the world around me, to remember something or process an emotion or enter sleep, or many other states like fighting infection, my ECS is regulating my response. But what is it? As mentioned, the endocannabinoid system is a vast network of chemical messengers or neurotransmitters and cellular receptors that are densely packed throughout our brains and bodies. Similar to the sympathetic nervous system, which triggers our fight or flight response, the ECS is crucial for almost every aspect of our moment-to-moment functioning. It's made up of three parts: the endogenous neurotransmitters our body naturally produces, the receptors they bind to, and the enzymes that break them down once they have delivered their message. All of us have many neurotransmitters floating around in our brains that are similar to the molecules found in cannabis plants. These neurotransmitters are called endocannabinoids, as they are produced by our nervous system when it has to regulate or balance a response in our bodies. Then we have the receptors. Receptors are kind of like locks, and cannabinoid molecules are like keys. Cannabinoids bind to receptors on cell surfaces, triggering a signal within the cell. They primarily interact with two types of receptors called CB1 and CB2. When endocannabinoids bind to CB1 receptors, which are mostly found in the brain and central nervous system, they help regulate how we feel and respond to the world. That might mean calming us down when we're anxious, helping us manage pain, or even shaping how we move and remember things. CB2 receptors, on the other hand, are mainly found in our immune tissue. When cannabinoids interact with them, they support the body's defense systems, reducing inflammation, speeding up recovery, and helping us fight off illness more effectively.
The endocannabinoid system is distributed throughout the body. Wherever there's a nerve, there's an endocannabinoid system. Because basically, at the nerve endings, the endocannabinoid system switches off the nerve signal. So it's across the whole body, the heart, the lung, the bladder. There's two main receptors called cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2. But between the two, they cover really all bodily organs. And so cannabis has not only a wide-ranging effect in terms of different conditions, it has a wide-ranging effect on all different parts of the body because it works through this very broadly distributed endocannabinoid system.
The ECS is the biggest neurotransmitter system in the body, the most prevalent in all vertebrates. It evolved over 600 million years ago, and it exists in all fish, reptiles, and mammals. It helps organisms stay in balance or homeostasis, self-regulating vital bodily functions like temperature or mood within a narrow optimal range. In fact, the ECS has been detected in early embryonic stages of many vertebrates, highlighting its fundamental role in development. When I learned that it's one of the most ancient regulatory systems in the animal kingdom, that blew my mind. Suddenly it made sense why cannabis felt so effective. It was tapping into something fundamental that had already been built into me. And that brings us to the main question. What does cannabis do to us? Plants like cannabis and some fungi also produce cannabinoid molecules which are called phytocannabinoids. Phyto meaning plant because plants produce them. These cannabinoids such as THC and CBD mimic the endocannabinoids our body produces. They fit into those same receptors and activate the ECS. THC is what scientists call a CB1 receptor agonist, meaning it binds to and activates those receptors, especially in areas of the brain where they're most concentrated. That's why THC has such a strong effect on things like mood, memory, and perception. Then we have CBD, which acts more subtly. It may reduce inflammation, anxiety, and seizures without getting you high.
Its relevance to cannabis is that cannabis molecules, phytocannabinoids, THC, CBD, and such like, largely, not exclusively, but largely work their mode of action is through the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is a sort of master controller, if you like. It's a sort of negative feedback loop, a homeostatic mechanism. Lots of things you could call it, but it calms things down.
And that explains how this happened.
This is probably the most important thing, to be honest. When treating patients who are suffering from mental health symptoms, what those patients most commonly report to me over the years is that they notice that their anxieties and their worries are reduced. They feel calmer and safer. Those around them can see physical changes in them, the way they carry themselves and how they interact. They're more interested in things, food, sex, all the important things in life start to come back to them because I think they no longer feel fearful and anxious. Those would be the most common reported things that my patients have told me about over the years when they're using medical cannabis.
I've been diagnosed with anxiety and ADHD, for which I have a UK medical cannabis prescription. When I stop medicating for several days or weeks, it's like a fog rolls in. My mood drops and I get irritable, which is what low baseline levels of dopamine and noradrenaline feel like. Consuming a microdose of cannabis feels like flipping a switch back on. It helps me to feel steady, present, and balanced. That's why the theory of endocannabinoid deficiency makes sense to me. The theory suggests that some chronic conditions may occur when the body's own cannabinoid production is insufficient or impaired. Supplementing with phytocannabinoids like cannabis could help restore balance. Used therapeutically and with intention, cannabis may provide not just symptom relief, but a sense of alignment, of returning to oneself. But like anything powerful, cannabis can be misused. When consumed frequently in non-therapeutic doses, it can lead to something known as cannabis use disorder, a condition where a person struggles to cut back or stop even though it's negatively affecting their daily life. It can involve rising tolerance, dependence, or mild withdrawal symptoms when stopping. However, it's important to put this in perspective. For the vast majority of people using cannabis as medicine, cannabis use disorder is not a label they identify with. The key is how it's used. With thoughtful dosing and clear intention, many patients who were once living in a state of deficiency have found long-term relief, not by masking symptoms, but by supporting a system that had gone quiet. For me personally, this meant reducing the dose and increasing the frequency. No more smoking joints, no more mixing with tobacco. I stopped smoking in the evenings, which would make me wake up feeling groggy the next day. Instead, I now microdose on a schedule, keeping me aligned and focused without side effects or feeling stoned. The results feel transformative. Treating cannabis as medication has restored a kind of balance that I haven't felt since being a kid.
It reduces anxiety, it reduces pain, it helps epilepsy. etc., etc. That's great, but it does lend itself to the cynic saying, well, no one medicine can do all those things for everybody. It must be some sort of snake oil, which actually, when you know how it works, you realize that it isn't some snake oil. It just simply works largely through this endocannabinoid system, which is a really important, the biggest, the most important neurotransmitter system in all vertebrates.
People say no medicine can help so many conditions at once. It must be snake oil, a scam, or just potheads trying to justify their use. But when you understand how the ECS works, you realize it's far from those misconceptions. It's science. But those misconceptions might be the reason why, despite everything we've seen, cannabis is still so hard to access. But that's a matter for the next episode, where we'll look at how cannabis is actually prescribed in the UK and why it's still so difficult for most people to access it, even when millions of patients agree that it works. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to continue joining me on this trip through the psychoactive mind.